I think that leads us rather neatly on to the second film of the evening, which I remember correctly, 1990, if I remember
I
correctly.
think so. Yeah, shot 89, released 90. I think.
Bob Balaban, who is not somebody who you'd really associate with horror, but he did something very unique with Parents,
I love
which
it.
never a movie I thought would appear on this podcast, but I'm so happy it has. But what is Parents, Dan?
So like just as Bad Taste was Peter Jackson's debut film, this is another debut film, another very audacious first picture. This time for Bob Balaban, most known as an actor, probably for the Christopher Guest movies, things like Best in Show, Mighty Wind. That he's in. He's also in Seinfeld as the agent. Um, in that Gosford Park. He's a fantastic character actor. For a long time, I had a script. We had a script that I wrote with a friend of mine that was under option for a while. I should go back to it. It's not under option anymore, but I've not done anything with it for years. I'm too busy. But I really wanted him to play the devil in that. I thought he'd make a really good, like, bookish Satan. Um, so yeah, spoilers for if I ever get to make a movie with Bob Balaban in it. He's probably playing the devil. Um, yeah, it's a wild film. I didn't know anything about it. It was one of those 50p rentals when I took it
Mm.
off the shelf and took it home, and I loved it. And no one else had seen it either. And so there's always that, especially back then when it wasn't just, oh, just go online and Netflix has got it or Amazon's got it or whatever. Like almost everything's available somewhere. Um, but the hunt for films, or the excitement of being able to tell someone about a film they hadn't seen, that they'd like, um, was always really exciting. Parents is set in the 50s. It's a sort of domestic unease horror. A lot of people sort of say it's got a Lynchian vibe. I think it's got more of a sort of like a candy coating than Lynch.
Mm.
Um, but it does play with the idea that things aren't what they appear. Like E.T., it's shot from the child's perspective, both figuratively and literally. So most of the time, the camera is at kind of like sort of somewhere between waist and chest height, so that you've got the experience of seeing the world through a child's eyes. And then that carries through into the greater representation of the film, where it's not that you have an unreliable narrator; it's that you have a naive narrator. So you're
Yeah.
seeing the world as confusing and not making sense, and you're suspicious of things because the child that you're watching the film in the company of is suspicious of things, and they've just moved
Mm.
house, they're in suburban America, and he starts to think there's something up with his parents. It's worth mentioning, I've sort of not really thought about this element of it until I was going back to it. I'm vegetarian, and so I spent quite a lot of my
Wow.
life
Yeah.
as a child. I was brought up vegetarian. My mother's vegetarian, so I spent quite a lot of my life being at other people's houses for like dinner and stuff, and never being 100% sure if they got what vegetarianism was. Like, what am I being fed?
Yeah.
And this kid, his father, played by Randy Quaid, in my opinion, a career high. Like,
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah.
Quite clearly mad um, nowadays, but he was a solid actor for a while, and I think this is his kind of crown and glory because he's got this really he plays it really like mundane. He plays it really flat, but there's such portents in his delivery of all these lines, and he's this very like red-blooded American blue collar dad,
Yeah.
and so he's got no time for his child's vegetarianism, which for me watching it was my father was fine with my vegetarianism, but like society writ large, less so in the 80s and 90s. And so he thinks it's stupid and silly and not really worth his time. But this manifests for the child as wondering what the meat is that his parents are so insistent on him consuming, and he starts to suspect that maybe they're cannibals. And this is helped by a couple of dream sequences quite early on. There's like the bed that turns into a bath of blood and that kind of stuff. But I think the film really kind of comes into its own when he starts to, because of his mistrust, he starts to expose himself to more of the adult's world. Um, you've got an incredible sequence where he's under the table at his dad's work, and his dad's talking about the new defoliants that he's working at, and so it becomes apparent that he's working for a weapons manufacturer, and that they're working on this Agent Orange style thing that will just wash away all life when dropped. Um, and obviously, this is set in the 50s, which is the time of nuclear proliferation, the sort of the culture washing of America. But I think there's a really beautiful parallel between the boy going through that. Like, almost everyone in the world has or will experience a point in their life where they first realize that their parents are fallible. When you're
Mm.
very, very young, everything your parents say is true. Their word is sacrosanct. They cannot be disputed or argued with. And then one day you'll realize they're wrong, or maybe even lying, and it does something very strange to your relationship with your parents, or it can do, because these people who were the arbiters of reality, really, for you growing up, have suddenly been revealed as just people, just with agendas and secrets and shame and all this stuff. And I think that the American people at the time, in the 50s, to some extent, more so in the 80s, looking back at the 50s, were kind of seeing the same thing about the American government. And I think that this is one of the reasons it lives so well, is that really we've only just continued to go, yeah, I'm not sure these people have our best interests at heart.
Yeah.
Like, they might be up to something. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like right now, fuck me, it really does. It kind of rings true that
Yeah.
there's a bunch of wrong uns in charge, and up until now, we've just been like, oh yeah, no, I'm sure everything's fine. Like, how could they be in charge if they were evil? And
Yeah.
then on top of it, you've got a really beautifully made film. Like, again, it's got some
Mm.
really interesting stuff about how it was made. It's a film with two cinematographers. All the exteriors were shot by I've forgotten all the names. But the first cinematographer was shot by a very well established camera operator who did some really beautiful stuff. But then he had to leave, which I've heard said, although I can't corroborate, was because he had a family illness. So there was no bad blood on set. And then the guy that took over is the guy that shot Hellraiser.
Oh, wow.
And so all of the interior stuff was done by him. And I think that there is, again, it's not quite as like crazy with its camera moves as something like Evil Dead or Bad Taste, but there's a couple of bits. The Lazy Susan sequence with the at the table towards the end with Randy Quaid lecturing the boy, and obviously that amazing reverse shot that goes out of Sandy Dennis's mouth all the way down the house and then up the chimney and into an aerial shot, like a jib shot out the top of the house. Absolutely terrific, like really inventive, but very evocative as well of like the space and the world that he's in. I basically think it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, the second time I've watched it, and on the angle of the meat, it's funny you mentioned that because I was speaking with Andy before we started. It's a sort of movie where if you're on the fence about vegetarianism or meat, this may well be a movie that tips you over the edge because it doesn't really treat meat eating as a normal exercise. I mean, the meat in particular, it has a couple of great sequences. I mean, what it looks like individually on a scene to scene basis, that's not what meat looks like. It's an abomination, frankly. And there's a sequence when
Yeah.
he's hiding in the pantry, and
Oh,
there's just
yeah.
this like large sausage-shaped meat that just wraps around him,
Yeah.
and it does some great stuff with meat. This movie, that's an odd comment, but it's what I'm going with.
It's this was another first time watch for me. In fact, all three movies today have been in. Found it so surreal. Like when we discussed what three movies to go with, and I saw the trailer for Parents, I thought it was going to be that kind of 50s Americana with something nasty in the background. But it gets weird, and it almost felt a bit kind of, and this might be a bit derivative, but it felt a bit Natural Born Killers, the way that
Okay.
it's just. Because I remember going to watch Natural Born Killers thinking, I'm watching a serial killer movie, this will be fun. It's not really. And this all felt like that, but also the strange dream sequences and the when you mentioned it was kind of Lynchian, but a bit more sugar coated, I agree with that 100%. And it's
Yeah. Well,
it's
and
not
Badalamenti did some of
just
the score as
basic.
well, so that ties it to Lynch
Aye.
a bit more as well.
Mm.
Yeah,
It's
like
very strange.
it's a very sort of like dreamlike movie. There's a lot
Mm.
of sort of like you're flowing along, which is a very risky thing to do in filmmaking terms, because if someone gets disconnected from it, it's boring. It's very boring.
Mm.
But I think it's really successful, and I think it's like the Lynch it gets compared to is Blue Velvet, but
Yeah.
which I think you can definitely see why. But I think that there's a lot of Lost Highway there as well, and I think that the reason it wasn't compared to Lost Highway as much is just because of the time that these articles were being written. But yeah, it does have that kind of like the whole world has got a lot of secrets, and nothing is really what it appears, and you can't necessarily trust what you're told or what you're shown. And even the scenes without the boy in, which are not shot from his point of view, are very like flat and weird. There's when the teacher's asking the mum, what do Andy and his is it Andy? No, Andy's child's play. What's the boy called? Never mind.
I think he's just
When
credited as boy when the movie
yeah,
ends.
I think he's just called Boy. Um,
Yeah.
Michael.
It's Michael. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
When the teacher asks, "What are Michael and his father close?" And she says, "Yeah, they're close." Well, what kind of things do they do together? And she thinks for a minute. She says, "Lots of things." And then she pauses and she says, "I think I'm just going to say lots of things and leave it at that."
Yeah.
Such a lovely, like, strange line.
Yeah.
Going to the way it was shot, though, I think I have to double that because the sequence in particular, one of the dream sequences, which almost has a kaleidoscopic effect going on.
Yeah.
I think it's just was it Michael? Yeah, he's just sort of walking, and it's got his mum transposed and sort of kaleidoscopic effect going on over the top of it. It's
Yeah.
thoroughly uncanny valley going on there. But other dreams, like the sausage meat in the cupboard sequence, it's just okay. It's not a dream anymore.
Yeah.
It does blur those lines, which I think it does really rather well, because that's always a risk with some horror movies where the dream and the reality is sort of, you don't know where the lines are, but somehow this works, and it's
Yeah.
a bit of a magic act, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think dream sequences are quite hard to justify in a film unless it is a very like singular point of view. And I'm thinking about having talked about the scenes without the boy in, because like often that will annoy me if if a movie is recounting memories and then you see a sequence that person wasn't there for. That's terrible. But I'm very willing to believe that those scenes without him in, are what he is imagining is going on in those scenes, rather than necessarily what occurred. I just find the whole film so satisfying.
It does so much in so little space as well. I think it's only 80 minutes long.
Yeah,
which,
it's really tight.
Andy?
With it being like a favourite of yours, is it one that you regularly revisit, or is it something that
I haven't seen
you've
it for a
just kind of
while, but
stuck
I've
with?
probably seen it maybe like 6 times.
Okay, no,
So I watched it
it's a
2 or 3 times in youth, and then I couldn't access it for a while. Then I had a DVD that came out, which was an unmatted full screen and not a very nice master. And then the Vestron archive released it on Blu-ray a little while ago, and I rewatched it then.
nice. And just as a kind of sub note, if anybody does want to watch it, you can actually get it on Plex now and YouTube for
Yeah.
free.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's easily accessible now as well, and it's well worth checking out.
I would
So
recommend
strange.
I don't know if it's out of print or not, but the Vestron Blu-ray is very good from what I remember.
Really good. They've done a lovely job. It's matted back to its original ratio. The sound mix is really nice. I think the music's very important to the film. Both the diegetic and non-diegetic music is really like impressive. Yeah, I really love it.
It's so unknown though, really, because
Yeah.
so much about it feels like it's just timeless, and it's not a horror movie that people will really cling to. But no, it's you mentioned parents to people and perplexed look in
Man,
the face.
people don't remember like really big things. Like I was talking to Jen, my wife, about this a little while ago, and it's like if you went out onto the street, like we're so bubbled with all this stuff. If you went out onto the street and you asked them to name actors, like half of them wouldn't know who like George Clooney was, let alone like Bob Balaban.
Yeah.
You know, like there. I was watching an episode of Taskmaster a little while ago, and they were required to draw Elvis, and one of the contestants just drew a man. And they were like, "That's not Elvis." And she was like, "I'm young." It's like, yeah, okay, I guess that's a thing that you're young enough that you don't know what Elvis looks like. I mean, especially considering there's been a movie about him quite recently as well. But like, all of this stuff becomes dust. All of this stuff falls by the wayside.
I think that's a consumption thing as well. I know this is going off topic a wee bit, but I think because, but me born in the late 80s, I was still knew things like Buddy Holly or people even before the Beatles. I've got a Beatles tattoo in my arm, but now there's so much media consumption that the older stuff is kind of taking a backspace. Like even we've had Stranger Things, but that's been a kind of push from like the Netflix side and maybe a bit of nostalgia for the 80s. But even then, it doesn't feel like it's handed down the way it used to be. I had a love for London Calling, the album by The Clash. That's my dad saw them playing on a street in Glasgow, and he loved The Clash. And things like Bowie and The Cure, which I still now listen to, well, they're handed down that way. But the amount of media consumption you go through just now, it just wipes out what's happened before you were born.
Absolutely. I mean, I think music's slightly different because of sampling. So stuff stays relevant through covers and samples, and it's a much smaller and less financially risky endeavor to cover a song than it is to remake a film.
Yeah, of course.
So like, it's interesting. I'm still discovering music from various decades that I love, that I were like, how have I never heard this before? This is insane. And the same with films as well. Like there are some great labels out there putting out stuff where I've either always wanted to see it and never got around to it, or just never heard of it. And these are incredible films, and obviously they are still making good films now, but they're also making terrible films, and they're making them at quite a rate, quite a pace.
Yep.
So like, it's hard. And when people aren't going to the video store and going, what's new? I don't know if I fancy any of that. I like this thing. And then a teenager who's just heard of Tarkovsky recommends you Stalker. And like, your mind is blown and your life has changed. Netflix doesn't do that. Like, Netflix goes, you liked this stuff, here's the same stuff.
Yes.
And it's just
there's no branching out, really.
Yeah, exactly. You don't take risks in the same way.
That's why I'm just constantly, I mean, I've got a 7-year-old, and so those bad movies, I've seen quite a lot of them.
Yeah, I can imagine.
£5 view matinees. But like recently, and it's not a big step, but like I was getting her, she took an interest in Marvel, and Marvel is not the be all and end all. I'm a Marvel fan, but I'm getting her into them with the aim of, in fact, one of her favourite movies, even just now, is the first Jurassic Park. She is obsessed with the first Jurassic Park. Taking her to see, we've watched all of them. I took her to see Rebirth last year, and she was kind of like, that was okay, but she wanted to leave after 10 minutes because she was scared. But the first Jurassic Park is one that she just always goes back now and watches. And so when she's older, it's Terminator 2, it's going to be Predator, it's going to get back to that era. And
I tell you what, if she's not seen it, I think it's on YouTube now. For a long time, it was very hard to find. But show her the test footage that Tippett did of the Velociraptors in the kitchen with stop motion dinosaurs or go motion dinosaurs instead of CGI, where he used Barbies as the human characters. It's it's delightful, and I think it's exactly what I was talking about, seeing the gaps, because like you can't believe it's real because it doesn't have the post-production to remove the control arms, and there aren't humans in it, there are Barbie dolls, but it's still got one of the greatest stop motion animators of all time absolutely at the top of his game doing it and going, it's probably better to do it digitally, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I've definitely seen that. Yeah, but so that's just a wee offshoot there, but
Well, that's the inspirational element, isn't it? You could watch Jurassic Park, and I don't know how you could be inspired by that. It's too perfect. But something that has that sort of punkish, roguish charm,
Yeah,
it makes it
well,
attainable.
It's the sort of Blue Peterishness of them. Like I could walk 2 feet and go and get the 2 Savini books, and they were amazingly important for me when I was young, because it was like, oh yeah, you can do this at home. Like you can do this. And some of it was out of my reach at the time, but other stuff wasn't, and I could get some of the materials, and I could practice sculpting, and I could practice like a bit of basic direct application makeup, and it made it very, very accessible. And I think that's one of the things that the internet has done really well, is that sort of democratization of information. But unfortunately, because capitalism is a hellscape, it's all from a marketing angle. It's all push to be like, you should do this and make money off it. It's like, can't we just like things?
Yeah. And just a wee last thing on that, like recently with 28 years later, 20 years, the Bone Temple came out, and it didn't make a lot of money, which is strange considering how much the first one made,
and how much
everyone's now judging
the first one.
Yeah, like for me, they're actually both 5-star movies. I love both of them. Like I've rewatched 20 years later so much, and I've got the next one on pre-order. But just the fact that everyone went, "I would only made this," because everything aims for the £1 billion now. See, when we had that period of just silly amount of movies like Captain Marvel, which is an okay Marvel movie, made 1 point whatever billion, because it was in between. It was the kind of glue in between, and it's just everything aims for that now. It's got to be, if you don't make this much money, you're a failure. You're not. It's art.
As long as you
meant to be
break
enjoyed, as
even,
you said.
that's all you really need.
Yeah. Well, but it's because it doesn't really matter if a film's good to make money. It matters how it's marketed. It matters how many people know about it, and that's why you get breakouts what's the independent horror that just came out in the States where the guy's self-released? It's called like Pressure Chamber or something. I haven't seen it yet.
Iron Lung.
Iron Lung, yeah, Iron Lung. Thank you. He had a huge following online, so he had a built-in audience, so that helps obviously. But he would, I think he was. I know I'm getting him muddled up with someone else who's self-released as well, I think, but
yeah.
But the story I'm thinking of is whatever film it is. They self-distributed. They reached out to bookers for independent theaters, and then they used targeted marketing on like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, but just in the areas that were like reasonable driving distance from those theaters, so that they weren't spending money on anyone who couldn't see it. And then it was based on very specific search terms. So it's like you only see this advert for the movie because you only pay per person that sees it. And so you'd only see it if you searched for this topic and you'd liked this thing and you could get to the theatre. And then even if you didn't go, you knew about it. So when it came on streaming, you're more likely to click on it as well. And that kind of marketing is, I think, very smart. I remember when I was very young, and For Weddings and a Funeral came out, and being told how much they'd spent. I think they spent 10 times as much on marketing that film as they did on making the film. Like it was something like 4 million to make and 40 million to market for prints and advertising, which is insane. But then it was a huge success, and that huge success was because of the marketing spend.
It's why movies, like one movie that I can't make a name, but another one was called Hundreds of Beavers, which had
Hundreds of Beavers is great fun.
There's another one which is F Your Dad or F Your Son, I think it's called, where there's one that's doing the rounds in
F
Canada.
My son, isn't it? Oh, F, yeah.
Something like that. You can't really say because it's a horrible sentiment. But Hundreds of Beavers, they did it as a touring thing where they just went around, and it's been a great success. That
Well,
has a
Ben's
very
doing it with Bulk at
homemade.
the moment as well,
Yeah.
and it's really interesting. I think that these different ways of dealing with things are coming out. You know, obviously things are in shift, and people don't necessarily have as much money to spend at the moment. And if you have to make a hard choice between, you know, going and seeing a film at the theater and a month's worth of Amazon that has Prime, you know, has free delivery for your stuff, and then also your kids' favorite show is on it, then unfortunately the cinema is probably going to miss out, which is really fucking hard. So I think the market's going to have to find a way to sustain itself with cineasts, which is not great. Not great look.
Well, I think it'll do okay. It's like the independent music world. It clamoured behind vinyl again, so there's an audience for that.
Oh yeah. No, I'm not saying there isn't an audience. I think it's the middle of these things that kind of falls away. The middle class is always doomed because the big stuff kind of sustains itself because it makes these tentpole movies. And yeah, maybe this one lost a few billion, but these three made 30 billion each, and also we tied all our debt to the one that went down, so we'll never pay any tax, so that's fine. So they're kind of, you know, that system works for them, and as long as they keep making films in this country and then not paying any tax and taking all the money overseas, then our industry will continue to have to be very, very small.
Relating it back to parents,
box a bit.
A big old loop around. But it's why labels like Vestron, Radiance Films, Arrow Video, you mentioned a few times, they're all become so important because these movies almost become immortal because of it, because there's copies out there in the wild.
Yeah.
And bespoke copies, it's not like going to CEX and seeing hundreds of copies of 28 Days Later for 50p. So it matters, these labels, I think. Any final thoughts, Andy, before we move on to the last one?
No, good. Was the one you were maybe thinking about, would that have been Shelby Oaks, if it was the other one? Because that was another content creator that done...
There's a movie called Obsession that's coming out.
I think it was Shelby Oaks that I was thinking of with the targeted marketing.
There's Obsession coming out, which was from a YouTuber as well, Milk and something. He did a found footage movie. I think it was a year or two ago.
Yes. Corey Becker.
About a prankster, yeah. And
I really like his stuff. I think he's very good. Did you see his short film, The Chair?
No.
It's very, very good.
YouTube stuff, man. Just
good. It's a
daughter's telling me about them.
He does like comedy skits, and then every now and then he does a horror thing. And The Chair is terrific horror.
I give
really,
that
it's like
save that
it's under 10 minutes, I think. But it's
a look.
Yeah, it's really good. Corey Baker, B-A-K-E-R.
The new one he's got out is got a lot of plaudits on the festival circuit. Obsession.
Yeah.
Which no idea. That's well.
Right. That Obsession and Resurrection are the two that I'm most looking forward to at the moment, I think.
Very, very different movies.
Yeah, very different movies.